Okay, so to my immediate, I still do this because I was accidentally talking about looking right. Okay, so to my immediate right, I have Carlene Pinto, who's the Immigration Advocacy Manager for the New York Immigration Coalition in New York City, and she focuses on federal and state advocacy campaigns. We have Jerin Arifa next to her, representing the first virtual chapter as president and founder of the National Organization of Women. We also have Carmelyn, who is the chair and commissioner of the New York City Commission on Human Rights under Mayor Blasio. And last but not least, Sara Valenzuela, vice president of Patrick Jenkins and Associates, and she was the national Latino outreach director for the Hillary Clinton campaign. So, needless to say, for many of us in this room, if not all of us, November was somewhat dramatic, possibly unexpected, and lots of people reaching out, what can I do, what should I do, the sky is falling, help us. And so I want to know a little bit more, what strategies have you all found to be effective in this sort of, I refuse to say his name, so I just say DJT or 45. I just feel like saying his name gives him even more power, and it's just, I'm not doing it. So, what strategies have you all found to be effective in this new reality that we're all in? As far as organizing, as far as getting people, friends, family, colleagues, coworkers, just a little more sustained in their activism, or quite honestly, ignited in their activism. And I want this to be a conversation, so please feel free to talk to me.
I'll go since, I was on the campaign that lost. Although we got more votes. Can I get an amen to that? More votes. November 8th was definitely depressing, but it was also eye-opening. Just the way that my career has gone is, right after college I did Teach for America and dove into immigration. I am from South Texas. Immigration is a huge part of my family. My parents are both Mexican. My brother and I are both adopted from Mexican families. So education and immigration were a big part. When he won, those are the two things in my head that just exploded. But it was funny because I did Latino outreach for the campaign, but I was more sad as a woman, honestly, than I was as a Latina. There was something, a visceral reaction that I had when I woke up on November 9th, and then I had to go help clean out campaign offices, right? That suddenly made me realize that man, this world must hate us so much. And it was really hard for me. And I'm sure it's hard for everyone. Sorry if this is PTSD. Hug your neighbor. But I think for me, the first thing I did is, I just kept going. I kept watching the news. I know a lot of people shied away from it, but I kept watching the news, and the first thing I thought was, okay, I need to get my friends together and I need to figure out what we're gonna do next. So I think for me, I stayed attentive when it was my, immediate reaction to shy away and to go hide myself in a hole. I made myself very present and out there, and I made my friends come with me. Mm-hmm. So
I had a slightly similar, slightly different reaction. So I have the city's agency that enforces all the anti-discrimination and anti-harassment laws in the city, whether it's in housing or public accommodations or employment. So I had a reaction that I had as the head of the agency, and then I had a reaction I had as a lesbian who was married to an immigrant who has 2 daughters, who were very excited. We voted as a family, we were very excited, girl power was very strong in our household. And that evening, I remember thinking, wow, we've overly shared with our kids. For folks who have kids in the room, you generally learn as a parent that you don't talk about certain things as certainties unless they are truly certainties. And my wife and I both realized, that evening and the next day that we had probably overshared and kind of over-assumed certain things. And so I had the reaction I had as a parent also, and having to explain, the results of the election and what it meant for my children. That evening, I think I was up at, 3-something a.m. and I thought, I'm going to write an email to my staff right now. Because my staff, I knew also would have a huge reaction, because we also imagined we'd be hearing from a lot of different communities in the city as to what this meant for them. and what this represented for them. So I said, I need to do it right now, because if I wait until the morning, I'm just not going to have the emotional bandwidth to do it. So I wrote this email to my staff, and then the next day, and then for kind of a period, I want to say 2 weeks, aside from watching, speeches the next morning, I kind of went into a media blackout. I went into a total media blackout and went into kind of self-care mode for myself, my family, and my staff. And I was kind of thinking through what was the infrastructure, more than the substance, what was the infrastructure we needed to build or create or shift to deal with the different communities' concerns that we were going to be hearing from.
Thank you.
So I'm part of the National Organization for Women. I started, me and Rachel sitting there, and a few of us started the first virtual chapter of NOW. How many of folks here have heard of NOW before? Almost all of you. So we are the largest multi-issue, completely democratic feminist organization in the country. So I love Planned Parenthood and all these awesome organizations, but I think we need both kinds of organizations. So we need Planned Parenthood to provide the services that, we need them to be able to get government funding and do all these really life-saving services, but we also need the completely democratic organization that doesn't take any corporate or government funding, so we can be as radical as we want. Because we can do that, because people's lives are dependent on whether or not we get government funding. A lot of you are here because you want to figure out how to get involved. I think finding the right culture. So for me, this culture works. This culture of completely democratic. So now, as a member, you can go in and you can run for office. You can run for national NOW president, any of you. And if you get the votes, you can win. Totally, completely democratic. Now people are some of the best grassroots organizers I know. We're good at what we do. We're very good at putting out fires. So when this happened, personally, it was traumatic as a Muslim American, as a formerly undocumented person. But I think because I had that background, I was able to reach out to that network right away. And we also did get together. We started doing vegan feminist potlucks. And we started getting together and really making the in-person connection. We're the first virtual chapter, so we have members across the country, but we really made a point to tell our members to reach out and connect to people in person, because we felt that was really, really important. But really a lot of self-care. I think for many of us who are lifelong activists, we wanted to immediately get into action, and I did, and I crashed in the first week. So a lot of self-care practices.
Makes me kind of depressed that I go next. So I work for a statewide coalition, and we serve 200 immigrant-led, community-based organizations and service providers and legal service providers in the state of New York. So I had worked on a very strategic plan with our federal advocacy team around what the first 100 days of Hillary Clinton's presidency would look like. I'm also involved in a lot of the 501c4 work, which means that I was literally out there like knocking on doors, sending teams to Pennsylvania. In my C4 work, both with the coalition and with the Latino Political Action Committee I work with, I also put a lot of time and effort into statewide Senate races, because one thing that when we talk about the federal, there were also state elections on that same day, and we could not retain majority in our state Senate for a number of different reasons. And so one of the biggest pivots that I think is difficult for me, and I'm still trying to work that out, is that I don't practice self-care at all. And I don't practice self-care at all because my background in organizing has been so intersectional that I've never been called upon by so many different allies and directly impacted community members from so many different communities that I can't even keep up with both my personal email, my Facebook, and my organizational email, right? And so when we talk about all of these different issues, whether it be around hate crimes, right? Whether it be around women's reproductive rights, whether it be around organizing and just basic general xenophobic rhetoric across the country, like there's a place that all of these different issue areas intersect, right? And as women and as leaders, it is our job to figure out, in a climate where everything is under attack, how do we do our best to show up most strategically for the communities that are most impacted, right? And so when I say that, I also say that because when we're talking about political engagement among women, it's so important that we have conversations that tend to the racial and socioeconomic conditions of all women, right? Because when we talk about issues of women, Planned Parenthood, incredible organization, right? Do we have Planned Parenthood offices that operate in communities in upstate New York where now we have large refugee resettlements where maybe they don't have language access to the services that Planned Parenthood are providing, right? Like there are still fine kinks in all of our activism and how we all show up that we need to be more intentional about, and there's ways we can peel apart those layers. And so what my daily life looks like right now, even today, I leave here, I get in a car, I'm driving up to Albany because this is the budget cycle, right? Our state budget is supposed to be finalized by 1st. So we already know we're experiencing massive federal funding, both to immigrant rights organizations and funding, whether refugee organizations are they're losing 2/3, if not more, than their budget, their operating budgets from the federal government. Like that's one part of my work, but then when I pivot back to my community, I do grassroots organizing with Black Lives Matter chapters to educate them around the intersectionality of immigrant justice and reproductive justice and all these other issues, because if we can't have a lens that's able to see injustice for what it is when we're experiencing it and being able to be that vocal voice, that we're not then also creating oppressive spaces or non-democratic spaces or spaces that then further victimize other women depending on their layered issues, whether they're a woman from the LGBTQ community, maybe they're undocumented and they're trans and they're here as an asylum seeker from a country where, you know, they are being persecuted. Like there's like so many different layers of things that I would channel and charge all of us to have those conversations and look at, as we find our role, what is the most impactful we can be in what we set out to do? Because the main thing that I'll pivot back from is that, you know, I had my very good friends were the main organizers for the Women's March. And a lot of the rhetoric around the Women's March, women of color didn't feel comfortable showing up because they felt like it wasn't about them. And so I tagged my whole body with Black Lives Matter, you know, and, you know, different flags and sayings. And I went out there with my bullhorn, and every single chant I did was intersectional. So when Muslim women are under attack, what do we do? Stand up, fight back. When Black trans women are under attack, what do we do? Stand up. And I use my voice to amplify a message that other people said weren't going to be there. And that was the role that I charged myself with. And so I tell people that if you're coming into the movement spaces, the first thing, do not, try not to recreate spaces of hypocrisy or oppression, which is very easy in the organizing spaces, and to make sure that you're looking at, you know, what role you can play and how you can be most intentional. Because a lot of women want to run for office right now, but if we don't have the conversations about redistricting and how a lot of communities of color are being redistricted, and then what if we then empower women to run for those seats, and the women that are running for those seats are not women of color, and so then other women are now disenfranchising women of color from that community who have never traditionally been able to get the power for a seat. And so I charge all of us with that.
So I would just add, yeah, this is, we're like,
I'm gonna have to run out early, so I'm
we are going to start early, just so they have time for Q&A before you leave, but I will respect your time. She's got to get in the car, and I don't like to be in the very late.
I would just say, I've had the privilege of being a part of Women's Information Network also, and a little bit more background. I'm like a very government employee. I've worked in federal and state and city government. Tish James was the last person I was a government affairs director for 2 years before I joined the campaign. So I definitely come at it from a very government point of view, which is sometimes we have less ability to be super radical. But
you can be radical.
You can be radical, but like it's a different. You have a different voice.
The different gradations of radicalism, right?
Well, I would also say, you know, at the Commission on Human Rights, we kind of pride ourselves on being something of the non-government agency. You know, a lot of the work that we've been doing the last 2 years, I think
think you'll look at, and for a lot of organizations, they're like, wow, that's government, because it's just not something that you see. So like, for instance, when we came in, which was already, unfortunately, because of the campaigns and what we had been hearing in the media, there had already been this undercurrent of xenophobic, anti-immigrant rhetoric. Already we were seeing that around the country in Indiana and North Carolina. There were all these anti-trans bills. So our focus was really to focus on the communities in New York City that had generally been considered the most vulnerable, most over-policed, had the most difficulty connecting with government because of all of these issues that they had probably with law enforcement or other government institutions. So we, if I look at the citywide campaigns that we've done in the past 2 years, you generally don't associate them with government. One of our citywide campaigns was focused on making sure that all New Yorkers have access to restrooms consistent with their gender identity or gender expression. But we did these on the subways, we did these in train stations, etc. Folks would look at that and they'd think, oh, that's the ACLU. And I would take great pride in that and think, no, that's actually New York City government.
Because that's the radicalization that you can bring.
Exactly. It's remaking local government. We stood up for Muslim New Yorkers in New York City. We said, we launched a citywide campaign, I Am Muslim NYC, with the faces of Muslim New Yorkers out in social media, etc. We wanted to drive home the fact that, after the murder of 3 Muslim New Yorkers in Queens in the space of 2 months, I was going to say 2 months, we wanted to make sure Muslim New Yorkers knew, one, government was there to protect them and government was going to stand up for them, and we wanted the folks who would mess with immigrant New Yorkers or Muslim New Yorkers to know that you're going to face fines up to $250,000 if you do that. So these are ways in which government generally doesn't come out there. So I think in local government, you probably have a lot more space to do that than you probably do.
But I would say that the avenue is very different than say how they. So that's kind of what I was getting into. Is that the avenues are different, and every person in this room is comfortable with what they're comfortable with. There are so many avenues that you can do this in. I've been on WIN for 5 years. I'm on their junior advisory board now. WIN creates a space where you can come and talk to us and be connected with all of us because we do come from. I depend on these guys to be incredibly vocal and out there and say the things that I wish could come out of my mouth. But when I'm working for an elected official, I can't tweet out just because I don't want to make a problem for my boss, who I want reelected because they are fucking towing the line and bringing the things that she is doing in her agency and making it possible.
And we're probably also relying on these folks to push our people.
Right, I need
spaces.
Well, it's a symbiotic relationship, right? I mean, everyone has a role to play. So even though your boss is doing a lot, we rely on people to actually push him to do more, right? So actually, just sort of a piece where it's like, if, let's just say, re-election is inevitable, that's great, but we can push him to have an agenda when he walks into office January 1 yet again. So I want to flesh out some of the things that you all said, though, because and just give our audience just a little more of a concrete, tangible takeaway, right? So, Sara, you said the news is important. We know a lot of people went on a news blackout, but I want you to sort of think about, not just yet, I want to kind of go through the list, but news. Some people are like, well, what kind of news? Everything's fake, right? So where are you getting your news and who are you relying on to actually get real information, right? And so are you reading long form pieces? Are you really looking at investigative journalism? Are you relying on a community of Twitter or Facebook? What is it? And sort of help us. Your friends. How are you mobilizing? You all mobilizing your friends, your family, your kids, parents, or whomever they may be to actually get you all there. Writing. I immediately took to writing op-eds. And I did a TV show on Ozzy.com. So I was I have to interview smart black people to help me process a racist man who's president. All of us went into different modes. But so some of you said, I wrote, but what kind of writing? What kind of writing is effective? Is it personal writing? Is it writing for an audience? What kind of audience is it? Your C4 audience, your C3 audience, right? Or your community? The self-care mode is interesting, right? And I want you all to talk about that. I'm going to get you a self-care. I don't care if I have to feel you and do the mani-pedi myself. What do we mean by self-care? It's is it massages? Is it 5-minute meditation in the morning? Is it going to the gym? Is it just a quiet drive with no music? Right? How are we actually practicing self-care? Because if we don't, women of color, everybody else, and then us last, right? So we can't do the work if we're laid up in bed, right? And usually we've seen this with our mothers, grandmothers, friends, family. They work to the point where they crash and then they can't help anybody. So when you all say, I practice self-care, what kind of self-care are you all thinking about? how are you finding the right culture? What does that mean? How are we organizing sort of our grassroots communities? Are you emailing people? Are you just calling them? Are you reaching out? And what does that mean? Reaching out to your network, reaching out in person. Carlene said, I go hard. Like, that is so many people, right? Probably not to the extent that you do because you're traveling around the country. But like, when you do that, sort of, are you letting people know what you're doing so that they can actually, you can delegate, right? And if we are delegating, how do we do that, or how do we learn how to delegate? You said showing up strategically. Some people want to show up, but they don't know how to show up without, essentially I call it like the colonizer bagel, which is like the everything bagel. So it gets into the regular bagel box and it ruins all the other bagels, and it's like, why are you at this meeting? You're like the colonizer bagel, right? So how do we really work with people to be there, but in this intersectional approach where it's like, it's not all about me, right?
It's so messy.
It's really messy. You know, not recreating these spaces of hypocrisy and oppression is what you talked about. And we see this consistently, right? So the step up, step back, it's like sometimes it's like step up, fall the hell back. It's like, get out, right? And so I always think about sort of organizations like Emily's List that does great work, but you oftentimes don't see many people of color.
Where there's very specific elections where
they will highlight very specific women.
No, where they specifically will not support women of color in races or districts.
Yes, we see that.
Yeah, I mean, decades that we haven't had a Latina in the state senate, and I was very surprised that they didn't throw their weight behind her prior to other politics.
And so you have someone like, you have a group like Higher Heights that sort of focus on Black women in particular, and they're, you know, if you're running for dog catcher, they're behind you, right? And so like, there's an Emily's List versus a Higher Heights issue where that's another thing. And then the last thing I want you guys to think about is, you know, Sara and I were talking about this before we started, which is the money piece, right? And so, and money's real. I don't know if you guys know this. I'm Donald Trump right now. So you didn't know? Did you know that money is real? Like, some say that they're fact checking. Okay. That means I just found out, right? So we were talking about sort of money, and I started calling myself a philanthropist a while ago. I'm a professor, so you know I make like $20, right? But waiting for Oprah money is not realistic, right? And so the different ways that we can donate $15 here, $10 there every month in a rotating thing to actually really contribute to the causes that we care about. How are some other ways, the list that I just gave you guys, that you all can sort of give people a tangible to walk away with? Like, okay, each person, 3 things. Like, what are like 3 concrete things that people can sort of say, I need to do this, having listened to these alien women. Besides the fact that we are all going to steal Carlene and take her away.
Right. We're pretty much kidnap you and really got to put you in the spot. I would start with the money part because my daytime job that pays the bills for me to be a feminist, a radical feminist, is fundraising. One of the best things we can do, going back to speaking up, stepping back, don't start your own organization. Seriously, don't do it. If you think that you want to do something, there's probably like 10 organizations in your city doing that thing that you want. Please do not be watering down like the $5 that women's rights get to begin with. We are the least funded across the board. Open Society Foundations is one of the largest foundations in the world. Their women's rights division is the smallest, and it gets better. Their women's rights division does not do any work in the US because, hey, we don't need women's rights here, we're great. So if you can help it, please do not start your own group. Obviously, I'm going to plug Now because Now is so democratic that if you want to be a leader, join something that's totally democratic, run for office. The thing about Emily's List or even Higher Heights is most women need a lot of push to even get to the place where they're going to run for office. So Now is that kind of safe space where you can talk to other women and your other feminists, and you're given that space to develop those skills and argue with people. Us Now women, we're not timid women. Like, we will tell you what's in our head. But really, your time is so precious. Your time is as valuable, if not more valuable than money. Really look into the organization that you are associating yourself with. Really look at the leadership and think about, is this an organization I really want to be part of? The reason I'm not now is because it's completely democratic, and I can call up the national net president if I have beef with her, and I have. So really, your time, your money is very valuable. Think about where you're spending it. I'm gonna repeat what Linda Sarsour said. If you're not following, if your movement is not following a woman of color, you're in the wrong movement. I can't say that enough. Like, follow a woman of color. I love the work of CHR, Commission on Human Rights. They do amazing work. Follow a woman of color. I recently had an experience where I was invited to be on a panel by a white woman, and her heart was in the right place, but me and the other women of color, it's like we were put on exhibit. Like, I'm not racist. Look, I just put these women of color on stage. I'm not racist. I'm great. Please don't do that. There are lots of great organizations organizing and doing this work. There can be no leaders without followers. Like, I am so happy to just show up to events where I don't have to do anything. I'm like, awesome, do it, great, I'll just show up. Please, let's not divide ourselves and really educate yourself. The first thing I did when this happened, my husband and I signed up for a 10-week anti-racism course. Okay, 10 weeks. Even though I'm a Muslim American who was almost murdered after 9/11, I was like, you know what? I still live in this culture. That just led to this racist man. It's like osmosis. I know some things are getting through my subconscious as hard as I try. It's getting through. So I signed up for a 10-week course. If 10 weeks is too much for you, read one blog post about a group that you don't belong to. So the first thing I did, I started reading about disability rights because I don't have physical disabilities. Please really educate yourself because everybody's feeling so raw right now. I go by the motto, do no harm. So I'm not even going to go and try to organize with the trans communities or disability communities because my space in that realm is only as a follower. So really think about your time, your energy. And the other thing I want to say, this is something that we really practice in the chapter is take out detractors in your life. And that might mean your mom, which is awful and painful. But if your mom's not supportive, you gotta really cut down the communication you have with her. Because we are getting attacked right now from every single direction. If I can control the attacks that I'm getting...
That's pretty significant coming from an Asian woman.
It's like law of physics. If you are letting a detractor in your life, you're literally letting the person take up the space of somebody who could be supportive. That is the biggest piece of advice that anybody has ever given me.
Thank you, Jerin. Yes?
So we pivot into tangible things that I would recommend to folks. Yes, the being led by a woman of color piece, the Linda Sarsour quote, yes, I would not be at New York Immigration Coalition doing this type of work if Linda had not pushed me and told me that I needed to broaden my skill set and understand the intersectionality of racial justice and all these other things in immigration itself. So one, I would say that when we hear that an organization, a national affiliate has fundraised $21 million, don't send your money to them. They just fundraised $21 million that weekend. Look and pivot back to the state and the city you live in, and maybe on the Commissioner for Human Rights webpage, there's a local affiliate that they're partnering with that they're doing anti-hate work with. Like, those are the types of organizations locally and across the state that will need even more support. And so if we're talking about we're proud New Yorkers, I would challenge all of us to say, we really want to be proud New Yorkers. We start driving the 8 to 10 hours to the other side of our state and start to think about how we lay down some foundation out there, because our state is pivoting and we're leaving a lot of our most vulnerable people subject to a lot of violence and a lot of hate crimes because we don't have offices like the ones that exist here downstate and upstate. We also have a lot of elected officials up there that take very firm stances against any providing of any services to undocumented refugee or even documented immigrant communities. So I would say pivot towards the local organizations, pivot towards systems of accountability that work for you. I say that because so many times we're in spaces and it's very difficult for us to hold each other accountable without also creating these oppressive systems or becoming harsh with one another or curt. And so I'd say, like, how do we create the systems where I do have people in governmental offices and I call them and I hold them accountable individually, and then they pivot back to their staff and they're like, hey, this person called and mentioned this, this, and that to me. Whether or not anything can happen, because I know that my friends that work in governmental agencies have these certain strict lines that they can't cross, it doesn't mean that they're not an ally. It means that I utilize them in their allyship in a different way. And so I challenge everyone, even people in corporate environments, right? How do you still then become an ally, even if it's just feeding information to other folks, right? There's people in the movement right now that Tish James announced 2 weeks ago that she's gonna push a citywide piece of legislation that any company that bids on building the border wall will be unable to get any government or city contract locally, right? I would then say, if you work for a corporation or if you work for a powerful entity, you take that list and you too boycott them, right? Like, how do we create these systems where we can really start to dig in deep and build? The New York Immigration Coalition has a tech service, right? That's how we're rapidly mobilizing people. When the travel ban came out, we were in JFK. I was sitting on a pizza box at 1 a.m. and we decided that we were gonna have a rally the next day. 30,000 people came out that next day. Right? And that is the public pressure, the national pressure, because New York and LA have a very specific role when we talk about national issues, right? We control whatever media we can control, right? We combat the alternative facts as best we can. And so how we do it?
I'm gonna say two probably tangible things. One is that we're in New York City. You have to work really hard to be alone. It's true. Wherever you are, you know, unless you're in your home in your closet or something, you have to work really hard to be alone. There's generally somebody else there. And I say that because there are so many acts of discrimination or hate or bias, whether you want to slap on the label microaggression or you just want to call it what it is, that happen every day, all the time, that people witness. And people ratify it by staying silent. And one of the most painful things, I think, for me, as you know, the last few months have been going on, is we do a lot of listening sessions at the commission. We do a lot of roundtable discussions and focus groups because we want to know which communities need what types of support, where we're seeing the most types of bias-based attacks or hate speak, etc. And something that has been repeated continuously over the past few months is that people have kind of just normalized the hate or the hate speak or the misogyny or the Islamophobia or whatever kind of ismphobia, whatever you want to call it. And so there are a lot of people in New York City who are hurt, whether they're physically hurt by these things or they're spiritually hurt by these things or psychologically hurt by these things daily, and they live with it because they think it's normalized, because they think, what's anyone going to do about it? Because they think, I'm a black person on the subway, this happens to me every day, I'm disrespected this way, or I'm a Muslim person walking down the street, I always have to worry that someone's going to yell at me at me or say something to me, or I'm a woman walking down the street, and of course someone's going to say something arousing to me or talk to me about, my breasts or my leg or something like that. So there are all of these things that happen every day that we take for granted, that we, as New Yorkers, I think to ourselves, we're tough, we're not gonna let this bother us, we hear these things and we're like, so what? Because we're New Yorkers, we don't react. And so a lot of my messaging in recent months is react. It's not normal. We cannot say that it's normal. Part of normalizing all of this is, I think, what's led to what has happened a few months back. We're in a city where there's usually somebody 3 feet away from you. And in recent months, I think a lot of different organizations have been experimenting with different ideas of upstanders. How do you stand up for other folks without being in situations where you're being confrontational or you're exposing yourself to violence yourself? There's so many different organizations right now that are offering these types of trainings. There's so many kind of coalitions that are coming together to offer different communities this type of training and to help folks who are in a more privileged position know how to best be upstanders for folks who are probably more vulnerable and more often victimized. So I would really encourage folks to check that out and to think to themselves,
and to be a lot more conscious of their space walking around. Even when you're a New Yorker, it's okay to react, especially when you're reacting whether you're going to comfort somebody or when you are expressing your discontent or you're expressing your outrage with something that's you're witnessing or you're saying. But when we hear these media reports when a Muslim woman's hijab is being ripped off her head, when a student is being chased because they think, that this person is of X immigration status, somebody is generally there. If you are that person who's there, think about what your role in that space is. And again, it's not about confrontation. It's about either dealing with the person who's being victimized or knowing that if you're in a space where it's okay to say something or register something, you should. Because otherwise, we're ratifying it. We're all ratifying that. Right? The other thing I'd say is that, people have to get more involved in the political process. I know that's kind of inherently in all of this, and that doesn't mean you have to run for office. I cannot, this has been my trial by fire into politics. I came from the private sector prior to this, so this is my first foray into anything this political. And I know from the experience that I'm probably not someone who wants to run for office, but there's obviously other things that I can do as part of the political system that have meaning, that push things along, that create change within the political system. If there are folks who, and you don't all know this right now because, some of you probably have different degrees of awareness of what it's like in the political system, whether city politics, state politics, federal politics, neighborhood politics. There's like all these different democratic clubs and other types of clubs in your neighborhood. I know it took a long time, for me to be in New York City before I was even familiar with some of those things. And so there's a lot of fertile ground for folks to explore. You're not always going to be the elected official, but you're going to be supporting folks who might be that candidate, somebody who you really believe in, or you might be somebody who is a great person to be in an appointed office and to push an agency, to push policies in a certain direction. But just because you think of yourself and you think, I think a lot of folks think of the political process and they think, I don't want to be a politician. That's a lot of people, that's totally fine. That doesn't mean that you can completely exempt yourself from the political process. So I would encourage you to speak to these fabulous women and other people and myself and talk to folks and investigate online about democratic clubs, other things going on in your community. There's so much going on right now. And it's really just about you sitting down and looking into that, because I think right now especially there is so much outpour for this type of engagement. I guess the last thing I'd say, just briefly, is I'm not quite there about not starting your own organization. Not because I'm about to start my own organization, but because I think it's just the way, especially as women of color, it's the way that we've had our own organizations come to be. I feel like if we had relied on existing organizations before, and I say this also as a queer woman, there's a lot of great work, or there's a lot of great organizations that wouldn't have come about. So if you have a good idea, I would definitely partner with and see the people who are working on those issues. As women, I think it's really important for each woman to have their own kind of board of directors. That's always something I say. You need to have people, they could be men or women, non-gendered. You can ask folks to be part of your support group as you're thinking through all of these processes. I think everybody needs it, especially women of color. You need people who know you really well as a person, who know you raw. You also need people who don't know you raw, but know how they can push you professionally, or how they can push you in a way that is, irrelevant or disconnected to your self-care needs and your family needs. You need kind of the combination of all of those things.
And Sarah, can I ask you just to try and be a little concise, because I want to make sure I respect Carlene.
Sure.
8:15. Run after.
Of course. But actually, shout out to New York Immigration Coalition. This is an example of something you can do. My friends and I did not start our own organization. We just, as friends, decided we wanted to raise money, and we raised $7,000 last month for New York Immigration Coalition, and it was 10 of my friends. We didn't start a new group. We gave money to another one. But I've also been part of starting a new group. I started a new Latino movement in DC after the Obama campaign to try and encourage more civic engagement. You can do all of these things, right? These are just tangible things that you can do, even if it's just asking your friends to join you in raising $500 for now. It's just so easy to do. I know people don't like asking for money, but money runs things. And going back to the elected official thing, I've worked in politics now for 11 years. I never want to be an elected official. I genuinely don't. It's not because I don't trust them and they're corrupt. I freaking love working in government. I think government's important. And I know that there's like a rarity where some people are very anti-government. I love government. I think we need it to work though, and I think that we need people who are on top of things and understand what's going on and are friends with these women and those women and these groups that can tell us like, no, this is how it is for our community. But you can absolutely be inside of government and still be changing from within, but we definitely need the people on the outside changing from the outside. In terms of self-care, I'm a super nerd. I love staying busy. I legit have watched The West Wing like 18 times. I watched The West Wing.
Is that your pacifier show?
Right, it's a pacifier show.
But you're like it.
Right, but you know what else I did is I went back and I watched documentaries on what has happened in America. And we need to remember that this shit has happened, this stuff has happened and we have risen above it and we will rise above it again. I just finished the Roosevelt documentary. If you haven't seen it, fucking watch it. I'm like, FDR was not a perfect man, but the stuff that he did and being a disabled person and being a non-perfect man and the things that he did were incredible. We need to remember the past we came from and the fact that we are going to get over this hurdle. Emperor Velveeta, who's in the White House right now, it is temporary, but we cannot treat it as okay, and we need to remind people of that. But remember our history, and that history has incredible leaders that we have come from in every single sector. We need to remind each other who they are. I want to know who the LGBTQ leaders were in the past. I want to learn more about it. I will tell you about the Latinos from the past. There are so many people. We need to remember it. That is the history we came from in this country. And we overcame, and we're going to do it again. And you have to remember that getting up every day. That this is a fight. It's a fight worth winning. So,
thank you. Okay, so really quickly, for those of you who are taking notes, because I did make concise bullet points before you leave. There's a conversation about whether or not you should or should not start an organization. Think about it before you do. Don't recreate the wheel. Time and money, and research organizations before you get started. Follow women of color. Remember that women of color are not props, and don't always ask them to work and to leave, right? Read about groups and educate yourself about a group before actually belonging to it. Do no harm. Use the space as a follower sometimes. Take out detractors of your life. Again, be in a movement led by women of color. Don't give money to major organizations. Support your local affiliates. ACLU got $80 million. Why are we not?
NYC got 20,000.
I'm like, are you serious? It's like the ACLU sent grant. Right. So it's like, okay, Chrissy, stay close. So give money to local affiliates. Hold each other accountable. Utilize your allies in different ways. Boycott when you need to. I love a good boycott. I love it. I don't boycott anything all day. Exactly. Boycott. I'm like, I was boycott a restaurant. It's like, I don't like the service. Boycott. Pressure. Don't ratify racism and bad behavior by being silent. Don't normalize all the isms. You need to react and be conscious and don't ratify it. Get more involved in the political process. It's not just about running for elected office. You can get involved in your clubs, your neighborhood, your local, your state, your national politics. All states are red states, right? It's just little blue cities in red states. So like, there are parts of New York I've never been to. That's like worse than the Deep South, right? So if you have a good idea, start your organization. I love this idea of having your own board of directors. I'm totally gonna have a board meeting pretty soon with some people that I'm thinking about. Raise money for a group. Again, not the big ones. Raise money for American Cancer Society. They spent like $5,000 on vitamin and stuff. I was like, hey, cure cancer. That's what I want to do. You can change government from inside and outside. Watch some documentaries. Know your history. Remember the past. Remind each other of our past leaders. Hey, you drive safely. Thank you so much. We have time for one very quick question for Carmelyn.
I'll 5 minutes.
Okay.
I really actually wanted to ask you this question. This is kind of your first spiel. I'm from San Francisco, so I'm very well connected in the political organizing and government sector there. I worked for Nancy Pelosi for 2.5 years there, and I worked on the Hillary campaign in Wisconsin, unfortunately. And
Okay, boogie. Question.
anyways, my question is, you talk about
Yeah, so a couple of things. One is, I play my role very specifically. I understand that I have been directly impacted by domestic violence, by poverty. My father was a Cuban refugee. My mother was Irish, Catholic, Brooklynite, right? My role in some of these spaces sometimes is just being the person that nobody sees. So if there is a deportation force coming, I'm not the one standing out there talking about it unless I'm on the bullhorn because I'm chanting things that everyone can chant back. I'm the one pulling stories and making sure that women that have experienced those things have the platform and are central, right? So when I talk about amplifying, it doesn't mean that I'm repeating Linda Sarsour's message. It means that when appropriate, I'm creating a space for her to speak her own truth.
But that almost sounds like the organizer's perspective.
Yeah.
I'm talking about someone who's very, very
Yeah, and I'm pivoting back to that right now. We keep talking about organizations without talking about campaigns, right? Like, let's be real that an organization means that it starts now and it may go on forever and it may have all of this additional legwork. Sometimes campaigns are 2 weeks, sometimes campaigns are 3 months, sometimes campaigns are 1 year.
Or 4 years.
Exactly. So and when I say campaigns, I'm gonna mention a couple of things right now that people should be aware of because it's gonna be my plug as I run out the door. Raise the age. New York and North Carolina are the only 2 states that charge and convict and imprison 16-year-olds with adult populations. There is no reason why we call ourselves progressive New Yorkers or radical and this and that, but we still have young men like Khalif Broder, who I met and I advocated for prior to me coming into immigration, that were subjected to 3 years of the intense oppression that he experienced. But people that don't know the story, Spike TV is running a documentary and I challenge you to watch it. So Raise the Age right now is happening. And it's not getting enough traction, right? People keep talking about it, that it's gonna happen, but we need people every single day. The same way you make your coffee, you have something on your fridge that says call so-and-so and leave a voicemail. Those are the things that help push things, and so I say join campaigns. Raise the Age, 17 different organizations are working on Raise the Age. You as an individual can engage on Raise the Age. Pivoting now from Raise the Age into something else that's happening right now. Right now, Governor Cuomo, which is why I have to run out of here because we're in a battle with him right now, launched this Excelsior program, right? He projected this to be free tuition for CUNY and SUNY. He even brought good old Uncle Bernie with him to talk about it. Me as an advocate pivots, and I do organizing for New York State DREAM Act in New York. Governor Cuomo has created the politics where he keeps supporting the DREAM Act as a standalone bill, but it won't pass out of the New York State Senate because upstate senators will never vote for it. So for 6 years, young people who get no support to go to college, who are undocumented, cannot afford to go to school. So now he creates this free tuition program that excludes undocumented students, part-time students, and students with disabilities. That's 40% of students at CUNY and SUNY. So don't tell me that this is a free tuition program when it's not, because the most directly impacted young people that need that support are not getting it. So, I'm on a panel with Governor Cuomo. People cannot fall victim to the politics. Even right now in New York State, people keep shaming the IDC. Am I saying that the IDC is terrible? I'm not saying, I'm not invested in any of that. I look at an elected official and what can I move you on and what does your voting record look like? Because until we have money out of politics, there will be an IDC and there will be political divisiveness. So if there is a group like the IDC and we have all these great allies, a lot of folks that are white showing up to attack the only people of color at IDC, I have a problem with that because they didn't create the IDC and they cannot control the IDC. They cannot control the dismantlement of the IDC. That comes from Governor Cuomo, that comes from Jeff Klein, that even comes from Simca Felder, who nobody is talking about, but he was elected as a Democrat. His constituents voted Republican, and he caucuses with the Republicans. Nobody shows up to protest Simca Felder. Even if the entire IDC went back to mainline Dems in the state Senate, still we wouldn't be able to win because of Simca Felder. And also, even then, Governor Cuomo stalls bills consistently and creates this divisiveness, right? So when I show up places and I'm there to give an immigrant rights, know your rights tutorial, and there's 600 people that don't live in the district protesting the IDC outside, I have a problem with that. And I get up on top of a car and I do a people's mic and I try and educate people that I know you're charged up and every right you have to be charged up. But how dare you come to a community where directly impacted people need a service and you're turning this into a political show? Show up at their office between 9 and 5. Don't show up when an undocumented family is waiting to hear about Know Your Rights, and it just so happened to be an IDC state senator that invited the advocates to speak on the issues. That does not help both the directly impacted people that we need to center their voices and their needs. It doesn't help the people like me that may not have had a wall for 3 weeks, but now I'm at a panel 3 hours longer because people keep interrupting me trying to argue with me about the politics when I'm not interested, right? And all these different things, right? So and I'm saying this because this has been happening to me since the election. People are just miseducated, and a lot of people have their own political stories or issues with candidates or constituents or the money pieces. There's a lot of money. So when we talk about this, let's also be clear that one of the women from the IDC, Marisol Alcantara, her New York State Senate seat cost $500,000. Let's just put a price tag on that. So if a woman of color wants to represent her own district, she has to come up with $450,000, but her community doesn't have any social capital, and that's why they hadn't been a Latina in the state Senate in 12 years. So I'm sorry, but if she went to every single mainline Dem and asked them for their support, and she was a progressive, and she worked in labor, and she worked representing the nurses of New York State, I couldn't think of anybody else I would, over there fighting for the nurses so we can have better hospitals and better healthcare professionals, and not one woman of color from mainline Dem would support her. That's a problem. And so I say that to all of us as challenging questions and things, as we want to be sparked up and we want to show up somewhere. Let's make sure when we show up somewhere, we're not disenfranchising more people, and that we also understand the politics, right? And how we then charge ourselves to be involved in the politics or engage in the politics.
And I think Christina actually asked how we decide what news is. I know we're all like a Twitter and Facebook, Snapchat generation. Before you retweet something, please read it. Okay, please read it. If you're new to New York City, and she's running out, you should probably read City and State. If you do not have City and State, get it. You can get a morning newsletter and an evening newsletter. But you also need to figure out what these groups are doing. And they have press conferences and they have, press releases that come out that talk specifically about those issues. Read City and State is a great new one. There's local newspapers also.
There's Slant Podcast, that's a link of City and State. There's Gotham Gazette, again, you can get it in the morning and evening. There's Ozzy.com, that's a little more national, right? There's New York One if you have Spectrum cable now. Right, but like there's some things that I was talking about where, for someone who's new to New York, it might seem a little in the weeds and to micro politics. But the thing is, all these people are real. And just like we got them in office, we can get them out of office too, right? Just because they're in super safe district doesn't mean anything. We know, every night that it's an election night, I spend at New York One. Do you know that we are sending people to Albany with 2,000 votes? 2,000 votes.
Because, again, people are not coming out.
Go get your
Yes, I didn't include the hashtag for tomorrow. So everyone in this room can really make a difference tomorrow. Hashtag include me. And you guys can tell your stories about your own school loan debt. Actually, you're gonna at the governor and say like, hey, this is foul. Why don't you care about part-time students? Why don't you care about immigrant students? Hashtag include me. We're gonna really need some support tomorrow.
Hashtag include me.
Yes.
Everyone got that?
In WNYC also, it's like, there's radio stations that you can pause. I love that I'm like, here's how you can.
Well, I mean, there's Brian Laird from WNYC,
Yeah.
one of the few people, but he also has a QD television show, right? And so there are a lot of, you can support local media as well. I mean, don't sleep. I have my students writing op-eds all the time. Do you realize I write op-eds for AM New York sometimes? Do you know AM New York, the little free paper that you get on the subway? 1 million people read AM New York. Mm-hmm. If you want to write an op-ed for AM New York, it's 350 words. Okay, I'm so sure all of you can whip up some 350 words about anything. It's normally about a New York issue that's of concern to you. That is 1 million people reading on the subway something that you find important. And I mean, I would implore all of you to sort of look into the op-ed project, which tries to get more women and people of color writing op-eds. We have no idea how many of these voices just get ignored, right? 90% of the people who are on op-ed pages are white men. They are controlling the narrative, they're leading the narrative, and they are the narrative. We can actually be a counter-narrative when they talk about women's issues. I kind of think all issues are women's issues, less issues, right? Okay, so, more questions.
So, you said you're a Muslim woman, so that's like two huge issues that are going on right now, being a feminist and also being a Muslim. So I'm also a Muslim woman, and I'm dealing with twofold problems all the time. It's like, am I a feminist first or am I a Muslim first? Because although they go hand in hand in some parts, they do not go hand in hand, all the time. So it becomes difficult to prioritize. So I want to ask, what challenges do you face, and how do you really deal with prioritizing what comes about? And is it as it comes, or is it you prioritize in some ways?
So my husband, who's videotaping, is an atheist, and I'm a practicing Muslim feminist. So my faith tells me that there is no emissary between me and goddess. And notice how I said goddess and not God. That was intentional. So in Islam, Allah has no gender because Allah doesn't need to reproduce. But I intentionally say goddess because our cultures have made Allah into male. So there's no emissary between my soul and goddess. That means no man, no feminist can tell me what makes me a feminist and what makes me a Muslim. That's between me and a higher power. I'm not going to let anybody in the entire world tell me that. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, could descend down on earth and tell me I'm a bad Muslim. I'd be like, nope, nope. It's just, and you know, I also come from a long line of feminists, so that helps. But this is where the detractor piece comes in really, really strongly. I have 2 older sisters. We grew up in the same home, but they are not activists like me. So I'm very careful about the conversations I have with them because they can become detractors real fast. And it's painful because you want people, your blood related to be your cheerleader team. But sometimes the person who's your biggest cheerleader is a white man. You know?
So then when you were saying before, follow a woman of color, so when is the right time to know that a white man is your advocate and not someone that's trying to just use you as a prop?
It's, you know, it's how are they interacting with you? I test people, I'll be honest, because I have something called, like I call our group a feminist force field, and like I literally will picture them standing around me when I need their support. And I don't let detractors in my life because that means allowing a detractor in that feminist force field. So it's not just me, it's everybody that I'm responsible for. So I test people. Like I will ask somebody to do something. Maybe it's something small, maybe it's something I don't even need. But this is just me testing them. Like, are you gonna show up for me? If you're not, if you're like selfish, then I don't need you in real life.
The idea of following a woman of color has been thrown out a lot, but I don't think it's going to explain it. I, as a woman of color, understand it, but I feel like maybe a brief explanation would be better for the audience to maybe really grasp why that is super important. Do you want to explain that?
You know, so I intentionally joined NOW, and we started a virtual chapter of NOW because NOW has historically been a very white, middle-class organization that also gets to sit in a lot of really important tables. And I wanted us to be on those tables. Because the mainstream feminist movement in America has been led by women who look a certain way. And that's why I'm part of a very democratic organization, because I get to choose who my leaders are. So I think really looking at that, looking at the organization you're supporting, like, is it a democratic structure?
What's your name?
Naima.
Naima, what do you think why is it important to put that out there?
My personal opinion is that I follow the least of these, my sister, and the least of these, my brother. So women of color, women in general, but then women of color, we are on the lowest pole, lowest of the tadpole, really. And I think what befalls upon me will befall upon you if you are structurally leveled higher than me. So if you want good for me, you want good for yourself. And so I think personally that's probably why following a woman of color is beneficial to everyone else's causes, because what I get, you get.
We're like the canaries in the mine, like, because we are the ones who are gonna get hit with everything first. So if you can protect the most vulnerable in a society, then you know everybody else can be protected, which is why, like, your commission focuses on the most vulnerable, because we know that.
I'm going to pause right there so we can have a little legal time so you all can ask our guests just independent questions. Can you please help give them a round of applause?